Hello everyone. The most burning issue for the 19th century, 20th century and 21st century. And in the 20th century and 21st century, the issue is burning like anything. That particular issue I am going to discuss now. Within 40 minutes, everything I am going to discuss with respect to that burning issue, which is called as Israel-Palestinian conflict. Israel-Palestinian conflict. So the historical relations are there for this particular conflict. This conflict is not today. This conflict is not yesterday. This conflict is having historical relations. Social, religion, political issue is this particular Israel-Palestinian conflict. I will tell you the story. Before 1948, there is no country called as Israel. There is no country called as Israel before 1948, and before 1948, there is a country called as Palestine. But after 1948, immediately after 1948, there is a disappearance of a country called as Palestine and there is an appearance of a country called as Israel. What happened? Why is it so? These all things we will be discussing in this particular session. The most controversial geography of the world, the most controversial territory of the world is this: Israel, West Bank, Gaza Strip. The most complex international issue, the most complex getting a solution is a tougher task for such issue. How it happened all? Before World War I, there was a very big empire called as Ottoman Empire. The total Arab world was been under the control of the Ottoman empires. So, the Western powers, UK, France, with the help of Russia, they want to fight against the Ottoman Empire and they want to conquer the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire is Middle Asia, Middle East Asia and West Asia together. The Arab part of the world is called as Ottoman Empire, which is covered. Turkey, West Asia, Middle East Asia is Ottoman Empire, the Muslim rulers. So British, by the policy of its divide and rule, how they conquered India in the same way, by using the divide and rule, they made the Arab tribes against the Ottoman Empire. By saying that, by promising them that we are going to give the independence to your Arab countries, and these Arab tribal countries, these Arab tribal territories fought against the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire lost its independence, lost its territory. Then the United Kingdom and the France divided the Ottoman Empire into two parts. In that particular parts, this particular territory of the world was being given to the UK, United Kingdom. From this point onwards, the issue of the Israel and Palestine is burning. Origin of the conflict. Late 19th century, Ottoman Empire was been ruling. There is a nationalism in the Europe. At the same time, some of the Zionists, the people who believe in the religion of Jewish and who are aspiring to make their own state, for Zionists, for Jewish people, that particular movement name is called as Zionism, who want to have a state for themselves. Before 1948, there is no nation for the Zionists, there is no nation for the Jewish. So they were persuading these bigger powers like UK, they were persuading the bigger powers like France to get some territory of the world for their identity, for their group of people. At the same time, the nationalism was happening in the Europe. Fascism in Italy, Nazism in Germany. Unfortunately, because of the Nazism, Hitler, the Jewish were being subjected to Holocaust. So there was a very strong desire for the Jewish people to have their own territory, to have their own state. There is a person called as Theodor Herzl, Jewish nation. He is the first person who strongly advocated for a separate nation for their identity, a Jewish nation. At the same time, the Zionist movement was been evolving. The Zionist movement was been evolving. The people with the identity of the Jewish religion, they want to have a state. Why? Because the next big thing is, the biggest problem or the biggest issue for any community is, or any people is, statelessness. Having no state for themselves. For example, Hindus, for example. Yes, India is a secular nation, but the majority are the Hindus. So, for Hindus, there is a nation. For Muslims, there is a nation called as Pakistan. There is a nation called as Afghanistan. For Christians, there are multiple nations. But for Jewish, there is no nation. Kurdish people are also, they have a territory, but they don't have the nation. They are also fighting for their own state. So the biggest problem is statelessness. So these people, the Zionists, were been asking, requesting, demanding for a separate territory for themselves. Hence the Zionist movement was been born. A demand for Israel was been made. So migration since 1940 due to Jewish persecution throughout the Europe. So Jewish persecutions were happening in the German state. Everywhere the Jewish persecutions were been happening. So they want separate state. So the demand for the state for Jewish was been increasing on day on day. At the same time, the influential people are increasing in Jewish religion, in the Jewish population. And that particular movement is called as Zionism. The Jewish community asking for their own territory to establish their own state is called as Zionists or Zionism. Zionism seeks to establish a home for the Jewish people in Palestine secured under public law, and they want to establish their own state under a public law. That particular movement is called as Zionism. So before entering into this, I want to tell you there are three religions which are called as Abrahamic religion. Abrahamic religions who believe in monotheistic gods, a single God, who believe in patriarchy. Jews are Abrahamic religion. Christianity, Abrahamic religion. Muslims are Abrahamic religion. There is an interrelationship between these three. Unfortunately, these three communities, these three religious people have common connection with Israel. That is also one of the burning issue. In this class, I will be explaining about the Jerusalem issue also. So there was one agreement happened when the Ottoman Empire was being failed, when the Ottoman Empire lost, Sykes-Picot Agreement. Through the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1960, a secret agreement between the UK, France, which is also agreed upon by the Russia, the Ottoman Empire was being divided into two parts. Northern part of the Ottoman Empire is taken by the British, and the southern part of the Ottoman Empire is taken by the France, and some parts of northern is also taken by the France. So there was a division happened. The countries shared, these two countries shared total Ottoman Empire. Independence which was being promised was being not given. And this Palestine, at that time the Palestine state was been existing. Arab Palestine was been promised that you will be getting the independence. Because of which they support the UK, they support the France against the Ottoman Empire. But the promise was been not fulfilled. So that division was been Sykes-Picot Agreement, which is we are going to give the independence to the Arab tribes, Arab nations. But they didn't give in reality. The agreement was the secret agreement. There is another big declaration happened in the same time, 1917, which is called as Balfour Declaration. According to the Balfour Declaration by UK in 1917, the establishment in Palestine of a national home for Jewish people. This declaration is the triggering point for everything which we are experiencing now. This Balfour Declaration, which is given by the UK, told that Palestine land is going to be the home for the Jewish people. They declared it. By which the Jewish people across the world started celebrating and moving towards the Palestine. So, within the Palestine, 30% of the people slowly increased to Jewish. 30% of the population in Palestine were being Jewish population. So they started entering into the Palestina. The effect of this declaration was best summed up by the late British author and a journalist author called as Koestler. He told a beautiful sentence. One nation is giving other nation to the third nation. See, one nation solemnly promises to a second nation on the country of the third. So UK is promising to the Israel to give Palestine. UK is promising the Israeli people, Jewish people, to give Palestine to them. So this was greatly criticized by this person, an author called as Koestler. So this is the triggering point I am talking about, how this all happened. So Palestine was being given to the Israel by the UK. So this person is questioning that, who is UK to give the Palestine to the Israel? So these are the beginning points. British mandate of Palestine after World War I. Migrations in huge number increased because of Balfour Declaration. Divide and rule policies. Jews rose up to 30% within the Palestine. Buying of land and evicting of local Palestinian Arabs from the Palestinian land. So the land is slowly getting acquired by the Israelis, Jewish people. Due to evicting of lands from local Arabs in 1936, Arab revolt against Britain. But British squashed the revolt. Jewish militia formed aided British. World War II Holocaust happened in Europe. Then sympathy was developed towards the Jewish. Why? Because the Holocaust happened in World War II when the Jewish were being persecuted by the Nazis. So here what happened in Palestine, parallelly the population is increasing, the buying of the land of the Palestinians is happening. The British was not supporting the Palestinian, the British was supporting the Jewish people. And their sympathy was developing because of the Holocaust which is happening in the Germany. So this all made the Jewish people across the world to move towards this Palestinian state which was there earlier. Creation of Israel. Then what happened in 1947? UN voted to divide Palestine. Equal division of areas between Jewish state and Arab state. And in May 1948, independent Israel declared. International control will be exercised in Jerusalem. Because it had people consisting of Christians, Jewish and Muslims. So the UN decided that the Jerusalem will be the international control. But an independent state called as Israel was being established on May 1948. So this is the beginning. This is the evolution of the nation called as Israel. So now, from this date onwards, the Palestine which was there in the world map disappeared suddenly. And Israel which was not there in the map started appearing. So this improper division, improper giving of the nation to the Israel and taking away from the Palestine is the issue today which is happening around. If you notice here how the lands were being taken away, if you see here the brown color is, the cream color is Jewish land and the green color is Palestinian land. At what time? At 1946. See, this is the green is total Palestine. And the cream color is Jewish state. But when we come to the UN plan, 1947, the UN told that this is going to be the Israel, this is going to be the Palestine, and this is going to the Israel. But when it came to 1949 to 1967, when the power was under the control of the Israeli occupied the West Bank and the Gaza was being given to the Palestine. And today, if you see, some parts are under the Palestinian control, some parts under the Palestinian control, some parts under the Palestinian control, and the total part is under the Israeli. So the big problem is this acquisition of the land by the Israeli is responsible for the formation of Hamas, Palestinian Liberation Organization. Across the world, the division between the Jewish and the Muslims. This occupation of the land. Then what happened? In 1948, the Arab world was angry. How you can give our territory to Israel, to other people? So Arab-Israel war happened 1948-1949. Egypt, Jordan, Syria together and Israel one side. Egypt, Syria, Jordan attacked the newly created state, but Israel won the war because it had the support of the British. Israel extended its boundary by defeating all. 7 lakh refugees came. Gaza was being occupied by the Egypt. West Bank is occupied by the Jordan. And the West Bank is again given back to the Palestine. Gaza was being again given back to the Egypt. So, the war of 1948 between the Arab and Israel was being won by Israel. This was a very big defeat for the Arab. Then what happened? There is a 6-day war happened in 1967. On June 5th, the war happened between the Egypt. The triggering point was between the Egypt and Israel. Within the 6 days, the Israel occupied up to Sinai Peninsula of Egypt. And the Golan Heights of Syria were being taken away by the Israel. It was a very big victory for the Israel. Egypt, Jordan and Syria on one side. Israel captures Golan Heights, Gaza, Sinai Peninsula, West Bank. Crushing defeat of Arab countries, Israel triples its area. So this was a very big success for the Israel. It took over the large parts of the Israel. Sinai Peninsula of the Egypt was being taken. Golan Heights of Syria was being taken. West Bank was being taken. Gaza was being taken. So everything came under the control of the Israel. But there was a peaceful accord happened. Again the Sinai Peninsula was being given to the Egypt. West Bank and Gaza was being given back to the Palestine. Slowly, most Arab states make peace with Israel. No more outright wars between the nations, but Palestine Liberation Organization was being formed. It is carrying out the struggle for acquiring their own homeland. In the part of this, a Hamas, a terrorist organization, was being formed to fight against the Israeli powers. It is a terrorist organization which is being demarcated by the United Nations organization, but the Gaza Strip and the West Bank will claim that Hamas are the legal, non-violent organization of Palestine. So what happened by the time? By the time the Palestinians were very angry, Palestinian Liberation Organization want to acquire its lost territory. So the resistance movement was being formed by the Palestinians, which is called as First Intifada. This Intifada is called as resistance movement against the Israelis occupation. Israelis illegal occupations according to Palestine. First Intifada. Protests happened, boycotts happened, large-scale violence happened, 100 Jewish and 1,000 Palestinians were being killed, rise of Hamas. More nationalist and extremist group after the outcome of this First Intifada. Meaning uprising in Arab, 1987 to 1993, a lot of violence happened in Israel country. Then there was an accord happened which is called as Oslo Accord. Oslo Accord happened between the Yasser Arafat and the Prime Minister of the Israel. The Oslo Accord are a pair of agreement between the government of Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, wherein both mutually agreed on maintaining peace. But unfortunately, the Israeli right-wing people killed the Prime Minister because he accepted the Oslo Accord. So in that way, whoever want to become the Prime Minister of Israel, whoever want to get the political mandate from the Israel, they became very much right-wing. They supported a country called as Israel. The right-wing people are totally against non-violence. They were totally for violence against the Muslims, against the Palestinians. So only that party who used to win the elections, who is more aggressive against the Palestinians. So present issue is also political. The Benjamin Netanyahu, he is having no support, no stronger support in parliament. He is not having the confidence in the parliament. So this event will make him to show to the Israelis that I am the protector of the Jewish. So he will be getting the support from the right-wing communities of Israel. That is one of the thing which made the Benjamin Netanyahu to use rockets against Israel. So it's a political match-off. So it's the same, how the lands are divided. This is Jerusalem, United Nations administration. Finally, it went like this. White is Israel, green is Palestine. Second Intifada happened in 2000. Till 1993 happened, Oslo Accord happened, peace was existence for 7 years. Again, the violence between the Israeli state and the Palestine increased. More violent than the first one. 1,000 Jewish and 3,200 Palestinians were being killed under this Intifada. Bombings of buses, terrorist attacks happened in this Intifada. Now the violence which is happening, they believe that if it continues, it results in third Intifada, which might result in a large scale violence. It might result in sectarian conflict between the Jewish versus Muslims. So there is a necessity to bring down the violence. Impact of Intifada. Right-wing shift to politics. In Palestine also, whoever are supporting the Palestinians, they are winning the elections. In Israel also, whoever are supporting the Jewish state, they are winning. So everything became right-wing. Emphasis on managing the conflict and not solving it. Everything became managing but not solving it permanently. Withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza Strip. Hamas became more influential after 2006. Hamas launches rockets into Israel. 3 wars, 2008, 2012, 2014 in Gaza Strip. Thousands killed, civilians were being targeted. If you see the bombing, the civilians were being targeted under this Intifada. Palestinian civilians were being killed, Israeli civilians also were being killed. So in this way, the violence were being penetrated between Israeli and Palestine. So what is the issue? Current issue. Why recently from Ramzan month there is violence triggered between Israelis and Palestinians? Major issue is status of Israel. That problem is revolving around the status of Jerusalem. Status of Jerusalem. Holy site of Jewish people, holy site of Muslims, holy sites of Christians are present in this Jerusalem. The birthplace of the Christianity, the birthplace of the Jewish, and the third holy shrine for the Muslims is Al-Aqsa Mosque after Makkah, Medina, and the third is Al-Aqsa. These three are present in Jerusalem. That is the issue. East part Muslim populated. In east part itself, the Temple Mount is present, which is a holy place for the Jewish. In the east part itself, there is Al-Aqsa Mosque. So, the Israelis, the Jewish people want to send these Muslims out of the east part of the Jerusalem. West part, Jewish populated. Center, holy shrines are present. Christianities. Israeli controls the city and restricts access to holy sites. Not internationally accepted as capital of Israel, but Israel tells that yes, this is our capital, but internationally Jerusalem is not calculated as the capital city of Israel. So Jerusalem is the content of issue. Why? Because the religious holy sites are present in Jerusalem. If you see the map properly, see here, this is the Jerusalem city. This is the holy sites in Jerusalem's old city. If you see, there is a Al-Aqsa Mosque. Here the triggering point happened right now, 1 month back. Western world, Temple Mount. Here the Jewish people will be worshipping. Here the Al-Aqsa, the Muslims will be doing the prayers. This part is the East Jerusalem, very much in contention in news. And this part is of the Christians, this part is the Armenians, this part is the Jewish. So this is the issue. This small territory is the issue of contention. Again, I will show you. See, this is Al-Aqsa Mosque. Dome. The third holy shrine for the Muslims in Jerusalem. Al-Aqsa Mosque. Dome of the Rock. Al-Haram Al-Sharif. Temple Mount. Both are beside. That is the problem. The Jewish Temple Mount and Al-Haram Al-Sharif is beside. Al-Aqsa Mosque. Western Wailing. So this is the issue. This geography itself is a problem. See, it's a preview. Al-Haram Sharif, the mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque, Dome of the Temple. If you see, the both are together. The Jewish want to do prayers here. The Muslims want to do the prayer here. This is the contention. Here the church, Armenian quarter, Jewish quarter. In this way, the Jerusalem has been divided. This East Jerusalem is called as Old City of Jerusalem. So this particular territory itself is an issue of contention, all about the religious sites. Jerusalem is a house of one God, the capital of two people, the temple of three religions, and she is the only city to exist twice in heaven and on earth. The Abrahamic faiths propounded by the Moses, Jewish, Jesus and Muhammad originated here. That is the reason that Jerusalem is a center for contention. Apart from the territory, the second big thing is Jerusalem. So what happened currently? What happened currently? Israeli security concern over terrorist activities and civilian attacks. Israel's military occupation of West Bank and blockading of Gaza. Blockade happened on the Gaza. Israeli settlements in West Bank. And water resources. That is also a big issue. Water resource. Tiberias Lake is a source for the water for Israeli. So that water resource also want to stop. Earlier, by Syrian government in 1960s, Shalal Dam was being planned in order to stop the water to enter into the Tiberias Lake and eventually into the Lake Galilee. But it was not happened. Water resource is also one of the issue between the Arab countries and Israeli. If you see here, there is a Lake Tiberias. See, the water is evolving, coming the Jordan River and falling into the Dead Sea. This lake and Lake Galilee, these are the major water source. These are the very green pastures. Here Golan Heights are present. This is a very green pastures are present. The three, the Palestine, the Jordan, the Syria, the Lebanon, the Israel will conflict for this Golan Heights. Green pastures of land. So this water resource is also most important for Palestinians and Israelis. Way forward. So how we can solve the problem? How we can solve the problem generally? Two-state is the best solution. Two-state is the best solution. Palestine, Israel. That is the best solution. But Israel is not accepting. Only one state will be there, that is called as Israel. But Palestine is happy that if we have two states, I am happy. Each party has to understand the legitimacy of each other's narrative. Presence of hacks and doves among the stakeholders on both sides. Don't listen to the people who are talking in between. You come to a round table and listen to each other, solve the problem completely and finally for permanent solution. Reach a common ground by talks. This is a solution which we want for this Israeli-Palestine issue. So here, what is the current issue? So what is the recent issue? The recent issue is in the month of Ramadan. When the Palestinian Muslims are moving into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, they were being stopped by the Israelis. Why? Because the Israelis were being celebrating there the Jerusalem Day. Why? Because they acquired the East Jerusalem in the six-day war between Israel and Egypt, Jordan and Syria. So this, in the Ramadan month when the Muslims were being not allowed to do their prayers, that was the triggering point. Hence the conflict happened between the both of them. Here the Israelis had injured the Palestinians. Hence the conflict of the new beginning has been started. This is the event. The Ramadan month beginning was the escalation or the recent incident which is responsible for the conflict between both of them. Why zone? Why the Jerusalem is a zone of conflict? Because as a Jewish holy place is a dome of the rock, which is also called as Temple Mount, is situated in East Jerusalem. That's why they see Jerusalem as the inherent part of Israel. But beside it there is Al-Aqsa Mosque, where Muslims feel it as a third holy site for them. So they want to do their prayers in Al-Aqsa. These people want to do their prayers in Temple Mount. Hence the conflict. Al-Aqsa Mosque is a third holy shrine for the Muslims. Hence the Palestinians want to get the control over the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The total Muslim world across the world, Muslim people across the world want to control the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is located in the East Jerusalem. Whereas the Jewish want to control the Temple Mount, which is there in the East Jerusalem. That is the issue. In past years, thousands of Israelis, mainly religious nationalists, have marched through the old city, including the densely populated Muslims East area, considered provocative by many Palestinians, where in the East Jerusalem, the Muslims' population is high. These are the reasons for the provocations. And in 1980 also, the Israeli parliament passed the Jerusalem as the capital city of the Israeli, which was not accepted by the UNO, but the Israeli is accepting Jerusalem as its capital. Palestinian declared Jerusalem the capital of the putative state of Palestine by a law passed by the Palestinian Authority. So Palestine is claiming Jerusalem as the capital, Israel is claiming the Jerusalem as the capital. So the issue of contention is this religious sites, Jerusalem, which is located in the Jerusalem. So there is a structure, a technological structure which is made by the Israeli, which is called as Iron Dome system. How it works, I will show you. See. So when the bombings are coming from the other side, from Palestine, so here there is air to surface to air missiles. So the ground station will be sending the ground to air or surface to air missile, and which will be destroying the missiles, rockets coming from the Gaza Strip. So in this way, this dome structure which is there is protecting the Israeli. This is manufactured by the Israeli Defense Company with the help of France. This Iron Dome system is very much helpful, because of which the casualties in Israel reduced like anything.
Iron Dome is an Israeli anti-missile defense system designed to destroy short-range rockets. Capable of intercepting missiles fired from between 4 and 70 kilometers, it's designed to perform in all weather conditions. The first Iron Dome battery was installed in March 2011 near the southern Israeli city of Beersheba, some 40 kilometers from the Gaza Strip. Several others have been deployed since then. Military experts say 13 systems are required to defend all of Israel. Enemy artillery fired from within a 70-kilometer radius is detected by the defense system's mobile tracking radar. The missile type is identified, its path is monitored, and the data sent to a weapon management and control unit which calculates the likely point of impact. If a missile is heading towards populated or built-up areas, the system will intercept it. Incoming targets are shot down in the air by one of the system's 3 missile launchers, each of which contains 20 missiles.
Hamas is a terrorist organization by the United Nations Organization, Islamic Resistance Movement. This Islamic Resistance Movement was found in 1987, Palestina Intifada uprising in the Gaza Strip, Hamas, to fight against the Israelis. So this Hamas is sending the rockets onto the Israeli, and the Israeli force is protecting the Israel by the Iron Dome as well as destroying the Gaza Strip in this way. So Hamas, this is the movement which is there in the Gaza. The Hamas is very active in Gaza Strip. Due to its hostility towards the Israeli Western powers, including the United States and the European Union, view the group as a terrorist organization, Hamas group as a terrorist organization. Hamas gained ideological, financial and technical support from Israel's biggest enemy, which is called as Iran. So Hamas is getting the fund. So in this way, the war between the Hamas and the Israeli Defense Forces is an evergreen thing. Every time it is happening between them. Geopolitical thing. Mainly it is going to become the geopolitics. Why? Because the Israel is getting the support from the UK and the USA, and the Hamas is getting the support from the Iran and some of the Arab world, some of the Muslim countries. But recently there is an Abraham Accord happened. Countries like UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan is supporting the Israeli because of the growth of the Israel. But however, if this Intifada 3 happens, it is going to have a large impact on the geopolitics of the world. The world is going to divide into 2 hubs. One is Muslims and other is Jewish. And the Jewish supported nations. The negative impact will be on the joint comprehensive plan of action which was been placed by the P5+1 against the Iran nuclear reactors. So this all will come to a standstill if this escalated. So what is the stand of India? The stand of India is, once upon a time we supported the two-state theory, but now the Narendra Modi is the first person, the first Prime Minister of India who visited Israel 3 years back. And because of the growth of the technological growth of the Israeli, India want to associate with Israel. So there is a need to come up with a clear stand from India regarding Palestine and Israel. But India, if it is against two-nation theory supporting Israeli, then Indian Muslims will be against the Indian government. If India is supporting two-country theory, then Israel will be against India. So in a longer run, we need to come up with a very balanced diplomatic geopolitical outcome. The best solution from my side would be two-nation theory. And the final conclusion should be need for a permanent solution. A permanent solution like two-state theory is not going to happen. At least we need to come up with a temporary solution. In that temporary solution, we have to make the arrangements such that the big countries like USA, UK, India, China should make the two sections of the people to sit together and to make the violence to come down, to establish non-violence, to establish peace among these two territories. So this is the story of Israel and Palestine. I hope everyone liked the video. Thank you very much. Subscribe to our channel. Click the bell button, like and share. Thank you.